Alright, good afternoon everybody. My name is Neil Malek and I'll be showing you around various tools within Microsoft Office for the next half an hour. The name of this webinar is 10 Powerful Tools for Daily Use in Microsoft Office. So we're going to be talking today about features within the products and also a couple of different shortcuts and things like that. For those of you who'd like to follow up with me after today's training is over, again, that's me. I'm Neil, the trainer for today's session. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. I work for a company called Knack Training, and you can reach me, neil@knacktraining.com. Now, since we have 10 different things to talk about, of course, we're going to need to move through those fairly quickly. But do feel free to follow up with me after the session to ask me additional questions. And after this session is over, it'll be saved to YouTube, and you'll be able to watch it again a little bit slower if that's what you need to be able to do in order to leverage this. So let's talk about the different tools that we're going to be using in today's session. We're going to be going into Microsoft Outlook, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And within each of those, I've got a couple of different ideas. So I picked 2 out of Outlook, 2 out of Excel, 3 out of Word, and 3 out of PowerPoint for, of course, a grand total of 10. We're going to start off in Outlook. I'm going to show you how to most quickly make an email into an action item. And we'll also talk to you about a tool that very few people access called the Activities panel in your contacts. When we get to Microsoft Word, we'll talk about find and replace functionality that goes a bit beyond what most people do. And we'll also talk about how styles in Microsoft Word help you to deal with the table of contents more easily. In Microsoft Excel, we'll talk about how number formatting works for things like zip codes, social security numbers, phone numbers, and things like that. And I'll also show you how subtotals work, which is this really nice, simple tool for creating a small report based off of a larger set of data. And finally, we'll tie up today by going back into PowerPoint, and I'll talk to you about how to show a blank screen during the middle of your presentation, how to convert bullet points into SmartArt, and finally how to create handouts in my preferred way instead of what some other folks do. Now, at this point, I'd like to just take a quick glance at the there we go, chat box. If you guys can just use the chat box to go ahead and confirm with me that everything's going smoothly, and we'll jump right into our topics. Thank you very much, Cynthia. And you can always unmute your microphone, and you can also use the chat feature in order to ask questions along the way. All right, let's start off with Microsoft Outlook, everybody. So we go into Microsoft Outlook, and these are the first idea that I have for you is that when you get emails from other people, a lot of times we try to treat the inbox itself like it could be a to-do list, like you're supposed to scan through the inbox and find the things that are relevant so that you can act on them. But in my mind, it's a lot easier if you use the tools in Microsoft Outlook that are actually built for that specific purpose. So I'll give you an example of that. If I get an email from Ravi here, and it says, do you have some time next week to sit down and discuss specifics? Well, this seems like an email that should immediately be turned into a calendar item. So what you can do in Outlook is anytime you get an email that should be a task or should be a meeting, you can drag that email down and to the left. So to give you an example here, down here in the corner, I have my inbox, I have my calendar, I have my contacts, and I have my task list. And what I'm going to be doing is taking that email and dragging it down to the calendar from where it is. By doing this, it'll automatically create a new meeting for me. I can then invite Ravi to that meeting by clicking Invite Attendees, typing in Ravi's email address, and saying that it's going to be in conference room A. And you can see what that does is it puts in a subject line automatically. It puts in the body of the email so that we can go back and track through it. And all I have to do now is hit send. Or to give you a second example, If I decided that this email from the automated system that talked about the current tasks that are either resolved or unresolved within our organization, if I knew that I needed to follow up with this, I just go ahead and drag that email to my task list and let go. By dragging it to my task list, it creates a new task for me. It puts the body of the email into that task. So I can go ahead and trim this up a little bit. Look at it, go, okay, so I know exactly what's going on in here. I can come up to the top of it, add a little content, say that it's due on a particular date, let's say the 30th, set a reminder for the day before at 8 o'clock in the morning to make sure that it's done, and hit save and close. And now I have a task based on that email. And the beautiful thing about doing that, about dragging emails out of the inbox and dropping them into the calendar or the tasks, is that then you can pretty much immediately delete the email that it came from because you have the information already saved in the calendar or already saved in the task list. Our next tool is one that we don't very often use in the contacts. So if I pull up my contact list here, and I'm looking at all the different people I interact with from day to day, if I go to any one of them and double click that contact, it'll open up the information about that contact, of course. It'll say things like what that person's email address is, what their phone number is, etc. But up here at the top of the screen, within the contact panel, we have general, we have details, and we have a third entry right here called activities. Very rarely do people go into here. If you click on activities, Outlook is actually tracking all the emails, all the meetings, all the tasks that are related to that individual, that have gone to that email address. So now I can quickly and easily find emails that I've sent out, emails that I've received, meeting requests, things that have been canceled, everything along the way related to this person, again by simply clicking on the activities button up at the top. So if I find another person who I've interacted with regularly, here Ravi's email address, I click on activities up at the top of the screen, and sure enough, every activity that has gone back and forth with Ravi, whether it's in the inbox, whether it's in my sent items folder, or any other subfolder for that matter, it all shows up there. So within Outlook, I think both of those tools are things that could be used tomorrow very, very quickly and easily. The first, dragging and dropping emails into either the calendar or the task list in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. And the second, going to your contact list and finding your activities panel within any individual's contact. So here in Julia's contact, I click on activities up at the top of the screen, and sure enough, all the various emails, all the various tasks, all the various meetings that have happened along the way are right here and easy to pull up. Our second segment is about Microsoft Word. So I'm going to first start off with this bottom option here on Autosave. A lot of people don't take the time and energy necessary to open up Microsoft Word, to click on File, and on the File menu to go to your Options. So here I am on the File menu, going down to Options, and you can do this in any version of Microsoft Word. In Word 2007, it's the Office button in the top left-hand corner, and then Word Options. In Word 2003, it was the Tools menu and then Options. And in Word 2010 and 2013, it's the File menu and then Options. Regardless, you find your options for that program. And what I want you to notice is over here on the left-hand side, we have an entry in our options called Save. So if I click on Save, you'll notice that automatically here it's telling me exactly how the autosave features of Microsoft Word are functioning, which file type it is automatically using, docx file format here, how often it's auto-saving so that it can be recovered, and in the event that you do go to save a file, where is the default location for that file? So I can very quickly here change how fast the auto recover saves, and I can also change where it's going to save every time I push the save button. So you notice here, when I push Control S, or I click the Save button in the top left-hand corner, it's going to default to a certain location. If I go to my options, I can tell it to default to a different location. Alright, and now the second and the third entries in Microsoft Word, the first of those is Find and Replace. So when we talk about Find and Replace, a lot of people will use Control F or the Find button up at the top of the screen, and they'll just do things like find me the word interesting and replace it with cool or something like that. And directly below that, of course, is the Replace button. Keyboard shortcut for replace is Control H, if that's of interest to you. What I want to point out is that Find and Replace has a lot more features than just your find one word and replace it with a different word. When you get your Find and Replace dialog box to come up, in the bottom left-hand corner there is a More button right here. And when you click on that More button, there are a variety of different things that we can use to specify exactly how this works. You know, things like match case and things like that. What I want to point out today is not even in the search options, but rather down here at the bottom we can replace special entries. So for example, when I click on special here, I could say go off and find me any individual character, any paragraph marker, any dash, any page break, any non-breaking space, any white space within that document, and replace it with something else. Now, before the class started, what I did was I went into this document and I replaced, every time you want to return and create a new paragraph, I replaced it with just a simple dash dash. And the reason I did this is a lot of times you'll get these automated systems that will email you things, and the document will not have these perfect breaks every single time. Or you'll get this out of a system and it'll be a plain text document and you'll need to put it into Microsoft Word, and there will be these weird things in different places where you say, oh, that's where my break is supposed to go. So if I decide to go looking for the double dash and replace it with a new paragraph, I wanted to demonstrate that that's actually not that difficult to use. I click on Replace in the top right-hand corner, and in the Replace menu, I'm going to replace two dashes. So I type in two dashes in the Find What box right there. And now the second part of this is that I can in fact replace this with something new. I can replace this with returns. So I will empty out what's in the Replace With box already. I'll click on Special, and I'll go ahead and choose my entry here for a new paragraph. And if you notice, by choosing a new paragraph, it's giving me this little code right here. It's kind of interesting to look at, and you know, it's pretty evident what it's supposed to mean. This little caret right here, and then the letter P, is supposed to represent a new paragraph. And in fact, when I hit Replace All, that's exactly what happens. It finds 10 instances of the double dash, replaces it with a new paragraph, click OK, and close this down, and you can see that the new paragraphs are now being entered in. So let me back up and show that again. I'll undo. All of these paragraphs are running together in one huge body of text. But I can look in this text and say, I see there are these double dashes in certain spots, and that's representing where the new paragraph is. And of course, this could be just about anything. It could be a dot, dot, dot. It could be a semicolon. It could be just about anything. But the point of this is to hit the Replace button in the top right-hand corner and replace whatever that marking is, in this case is a double dash, with a new paragraph. Now, if this is the first time you've ever done this, you might look at that new paragraph marker right there and think to yourself, I bet there are a few other things that I could do. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So what exactly can you do in the Replace With box? What I'd like everybody to do at this moment is go ahead and copy down this web address, http://bit.ly, and then this last part is case sensitive. So it's capital F, lowercase n, capital R, capital C, lowercase O-D-E-S. So bit.ly/F and R codes. Capital F, capital R, and capital C, lowercase everything else. Now, when you get this down, if you put this into any web browser, what you'll notice is that this takes you to a page from Microsoft that has all of those different codes in it. Let me go ahead and demonstrate. So you can see here that to find a paragraph mark, what we do is we put in $P. A tab character is $T. A dash is $+. A caret character is $. And a line break is $L. A column break is $N. So if you wanted to find any of these entries or replace any of these entries, you just need to find those different characters there. Footnotes are $F. Endnotes are $E. Comments are $A. So every time that you're looking for a break of some kind, or you're trying to use a break of some kind, you're going to go to this web address, bit.ly/FNR codes with capital F, capital R, and capital C. And the reason I point that out to you is because, as you saw, I was able to do it without actually knowing that it was $P. But once you know that $P exists, then you probably want to go out and make sure that you know about all the rest of the options that are in front of you. So here we are. We're doing the find and replace. We're replacing it with a new paragraph. What happens if you wanted to make a new break of some kind, right? If I replace this with something else, under the special, I have things like replace it with a new manual page break right there. And as you can see, that's $M. And so every time you see a dash dash, I'll get a new page now. I'll replace all of them. And sure enough, 10 times throughout this document, it found the dash dash and gave you a new page break. Now, it's not exactly what we wanted in this situation, but it's interesting to see in practice. And for that matter, I can hit find and replace again, find that $M, which is the page break, and replace it with $P, which is the paragraph break. When I replace all, it finds 10 of those, and instead of page breaks now, it gives me paragraph breaks. So all that's demonstrating is that find and replace works for more than just words. A lot of times people think they're just replacing one word with another in this scenario, but there's a ton of different things that we can find and replace if you get a document that's kind of messy. Now, the third thing that I want to talk to you about in Microsoft Word is simply the use of styles, and one reason why the use of styles is so helpful. So as you can see here, I've got my introduction, I've got my subheading under my introduction, I've got my first segment, and a subheading underneath the first segment. And each of these, when I click on that particular entry, I notice that at the top of my screen, that entry is being marked as being a heading 2. So just to demonstrate how I did this, if I'm creating a subheading, a new subheading right here, so I'm just typing this in, I then go up to the top of the screen and choose heading 1 or heading 2. Heading 1 for those things that are most important, and heading 2 for the subheadings underneath those. And so since this is a subheading, I'm going to click on heading 2. And that's going to apply that look and feel. Now that's one reason to use headings, because now every subheading has that heading 2 style, and maybe I like the look of this, or maybe I want to change it, so I'll right click on heading 2 and choose modify, and maybe turn all the color to purple, right? Now every subheading is purple, as you can see here and here. And that's very helpful, definitely. The ability, not necessarily to make it purple, but to make it anything that you'd like it to be is rather nice. But the real reason why this is important is because later, when Microsoft Word is looking through this document, it's going to be able to retrieve for you all the instances of heading 1 and heading 2 and use those for different purposes. For example, if I come in here, give myself a little extra space, and I want to use a table of contents right here, when I go to my References tab at the top of the screen and go to Insert a new table of contents, you'll see that automatically, once I choose a table of contents, that it grabs introduction and subheading and first segment and the subheading and the subheading and the second section and the conclusion, and it creates that table of contents automatically. So one of the reasons why I recommend people use styles very strongly throughout their documents is that now, anytime that you want to, you can create a subheading. You can simply use the Home tab and the Heading to entry to make that into a second level heading. And now, when I go back to the table of contents, you notice, let me go back there real quickly. This is a subheading under the second section, so I'll call this one Newly Entered Subheading. And as you can see on the table of contents, it's not there yet. But I simply click on my table of contents and use Update Table, tell it to update the entire table. It'll find any new entries that I'm looking for. Click OK, and the newly entered subheading immediately shows up in the table of contents. A lot of people are forced to build their own table of contents by hand, and that's just more pain and effort than it's really worth. Alright, so going back so far, we've talked about in Microsoft Word how autosave features can be adjusted by going to File and then to Options. How your Find and Replace can do more than just replace individual words with other individual words. If you want to, you can find codes and all sorts of different things. And how the table of contents can be automatically generated if you just use your headings in your styles. Now moving forward, we're going to move over to Microsoft Excel. Number formatting is the first entry I want to talk to you about. So let's talk about number formatting. Here we are. We're talking about Amber Norwich, who lives in Des Moines, Iowa, and we're about to enter Amber Norwich's zip code. Now, if Amber Norwich's zip code is something like 81909, for example, then that's easy enough to do. But if we are talking about Sam E. Jones, who works at 45 Wall Street in New York, well, New York, I believe, starts off with zeros. I could be wrong on that one. There are zip codes that start off with zeros, though. And so if you were to type in 03415, for example, the problem with this is that Excel is going to believe that the leading zero in this zip code is actually a mistake on your part, and it's going to drop that leading zero. It's going to say the number that you meant to type in is 3415. And in fact, when I move forward from that, that's exactly what happens here. That 03415 becomes just 3415. So how do we resolve this? A lot of people get frustrated in situations like this, but really, when we're talking about things like zip codes, Microsoft Excel already has something for us. So I'm going to highlight all the cells that are going to have zip codes in the very near future. I'm going to go to my Home tab at the top of the screen, and I'm going to go to this section of the Home ribbon called Number Format. And specifically, there's a drop-down menu at the top that says General currently. When I click on General, you can see that I can make choices, things like accounting format, or short date format, or time format, or things like that. But of course, these are only some of the options that Microsoft's going to give us, because Microsoft always gives us way more options than we could ever use. So let's look at a possible entry here. We go down to where it says More Number Formats at the bottom, and you can see that in the dialog box that opens up after you choose More Number Formats, one of the possible entries is the ever so specific Special. So there are special situations, like zip codes, for example. If you click on Special, you'll see that zip code is one of your possible entries. Now, right now, with the 81909, you don't see anything very interesting. But watch what happens when I choose zip code and I click OK and I look at 03415. As you can see, if something is a zip code and it has a leading 0, that's fine. As long as you pre-format it as a zip code, it'll leave the leading 0 there. So again, if I go in and I put in Rachel Y. Johnson, who works at 23 Wall Street in New York, and I say that her zip code is 02304, then because I've pre-formatted these cells as being zip codes, it leaves that leading 0 there. In this exact same way, when you look at other cells and you go back to that special format area, you'll notice that there are special special formatting options for phone numbers and also for social security numbers. So let's say that we have somebody's mobile and we have somebody's social security number. We will pre-format these as phone numbers by going to the drop-down menu, choosing more number formats, picking special, and going with phone number. And the social security number, again, I'll highlight the cells. I will pre-format them as being special social security numbers and hit OK. And now if I type in that their mobile number is 405-876-5959, if you notice, I haven't put anything in but numbers, and automatically Excel puts in the parentheses, the spaces, and the dashes. So let me do that again. 212-505-9696. No parentheses, no spaces, no dashes, no nothing. And Excel goes ahead and accepts that and puts in those formatting options for me. If I put in somebody's social security number as 555-99-5599, it automatically puts in the dashes for me for that format. So number formatting has these preset options that will keep you from being terribly frustrated in these situations. The other thing I wanted to show you about Microsoft Excel was that there's this beautiful thing called Subtotals that works very, very nicely. So let's say that I have this information from all of these places that are selling sodas, and I really just wanted a report that showed me all of Coca-Cola's sales, and then specifically within Coca-Cola's company sales, the specific brands that are there. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the brand column, and I'm going to use the sort button that's on the data tab at the top of the screen to put all of the caffeine-free Diet Cokes together, to put all of the Coca-Colas together, to put all of the Diet Cokes together, etc. Then I'm going to click on the company column, and I'm going to use the same button, A to Z, in order to keep all of the Coca-Cola brands together. And then later down here, when we finally get to the bottom of the Coca-Cola brands, we see the Dr. Pepper brands, the Fanta brands, and the Pepsi brands. Now, by doing this, I've made it so that you can see in a report how much caffeine-free Diet Coke we're selling, for example, by doing the following. I go up to my data tab at the top of the screen, and on the far right-hand side of the screen, I tell it to find my subtotals for me. When I click on subtotal, it's going to ask me, what thing do you want to subtotal up? And I will say that I want to subtotal up each individual brand within the company that we're selling. So at each change in brand, I would like to sum up all of the order costs. And I'd like to sum up the total quantity that we're delivering to them. Click OK. And as you can see, I now have these little plus signs next to caffeine-free Diet Coke, next to Coca-Cola, that I can click on. So you see these over here? I've got these little plus and minus signs over here on the side. These are the grouping entries for my subtotals. And so now what I can do is I can come over to the left side of the screen, click on the 2 at the top of the screen, and what that will do is it'll collapse those all down, and now I have a report that tells me, all right, for all of the caffeine-free Diet Coke, we have 430 that we delivered for a total cost of $4,900. For Coca-Cola, We have 656 delivered for a total cost of $7,400, and on down the line. So let's redo that very quickly. I'll click on Subtotal up here at the top of the screen, click on Remove All, and I'll resort them by order date. So I'm going over here to the order date column on the left-hand side and pushing Sort, and this is the way that we saw things when we first started out. So what are we trying to accomplish? I would like to clump together all of the different sodas, and then once they're all clumped together, I'd like to tell Excel to go ahead and add those all up for me. So I click in the brand column someplace, let's say right here on this Diet Sprite entry. I push the Sort A to Z button, and now all of the different sodas are clumped together. I took a second and went over here to the company column and sorted them so that all the Coca-Cola company sodas were together and all the Pepsi soda were together, and that's fine. And now what we do is we implement a subtotal. When we implement the subtotal, we're going to say every time the brand changes, I want you to average the order cost, for example. So we click on Subtotal on our Data tab at the top of the screen. At each change in brand, I want to average the order cost. So I want to know the average order cost. Every time the brand changes, find me the average order cost, and then hit OK. And just like that, I've got these running entries along the way. But it's easiest to see them, as you can see on the left-hand side, when I click on the 2 up here at the top, that'll allow me to collapse those down. So I click on the 2, it collapses those entries down, and I can see what the average for caffeine-free Diet Coke was, what the average for Coca-Cola was, what the average for Fanta was, etc. Alright, so that's Microsoft Excel, and we'll finish off today with Microsoft PowerPoint. The first thing I want to talk to you about at PowerPoint is very, very simple. It's this blank screen idea. During the middle of your presentation, while you're giving your presentation, let's say I'm on this slide right here, and I don't want to show my screen anymore, what I do is I go to my keyboard and I find the B as in boy key on the keyboard. So when I tap B, what gives me is a black screen. As you can see there, my screen has gone black, and this is because I've pressed the B on the keyboard. When I go back to the keyboard and I press B again, it comes back to me. So this is a simple keyboard shortcut while you're in the midst of a PowerPoint presentation, while you're showing somebody a screen, that you can turn off the screen very temporarily and talk without necessarily having the visual distraction of your PowerPoint slides. And again, that was the B key on the keyboard for your blank screen. Secondly, within PowerPoint, if you've got a slide that has a lot of bullets on it, let's say like this one. One of the things that I recommend very highly to people is once you've moved over to Office 2007, 2010, or 2013, that you make use of this new tool called SmartArt, which allows you to create diagrams from the things that you've already typed. So for example, if I click here in my bullet points and I go to the top of my screen, you'll see that on the Home tab, I'm on the Home tab on the left-hand side, and I move over here about to the middle of the Home tab, I find Convert to SmartArt as a possible entry. When I click on Convert to SmartArt, I can say that those bullet points are all sorts of different things. I can say that they're different steps along a path. I can say that they're related to one another as a pyramid hierarchy. I could say that they're related to one another as a Venn diagram. Pretty much anything I want. I can make a cycle out of them, anything at all. So anytime that you have bullet points, think about the possibility of turning those bullet points into let's say a Venn diagram, for example. When I hit Convert to SmartArt and choose my Venn diagram, I can show how those three entries are related to one another in diagram format instead of each individual entry in boring bullet points. And finally, once you're done with all of this, it's probably a good idea to create handouts from your slides that people can use after the class is over or after the meeting is over. And a lot of times people will just go to File in the top left-hand corner and choose Print. And there's nothing per se wrong about printing handouts in this manner. But my preferred method is actually to go from the File menu down to this option called Share. Actually, in 2013, I apologize. In 2010, it's called Share. In 2013, it's called Export. So if I go to Export in 2013, there's this option here for creating handouts. And the reason I point this out is because what this does is it exports it from Microsoft PowerPoint and into Microsoft Word. So when I click on Create Handouts and click on Create Handouts, it will ask me, do you want to have lines next to your slides, for example? I'll choose that entry and click OK. What it'll do is open up Microsoft Word for me, and it will take the contents of the PowerPoint presentation and put them into table form in the document. Now the beauty of this is, once this is done, I can edit this in whatever way I want. You see here, we've got the same handout that you would have created by going to File, Print, but now you're in complete control of what the rest of this ends up looking like. You can put in headers and footers, you can format this, you can change the dimensions, you can change the margins on the page, you can do absolutely anything. And so again, just to recap here, I was in Microsoft PowerPoint, and because this is different from one version of PowerPoint to the next, you may need to look around for it, but it's either in File Share or File Export, depending on the version. I'm going to go to File Export here in PowerPoint 2013, create a new handout, and that will send it to Microsoft Word, where I can not only have the handout I want from the slides, but I can also add additional content and formatting to make it into something that I find really useful. And there it is. So just to recap where we went here today at lunch, in Microsoft Outlook, I recommended that you drag and drop emails to both your calendar and your task list to make those action items as quickly as possible. I also recommended that you use the Activities panel in your contact list, because that's a good way of seeing all the emails and meetings that are related to the person that you're looking at. Within Word, of course, we want to make sure that you change the Autosave feature so that it does exactly what you want it to do every single time. We want to make sure that in Find and Replace that you understand that there are lots of other possibilities, including being able to find and replace things like line breaks and page breaks and paragraph breaks. That the table of contents is very, very easy to use if you use your headings. Then we moved over to Microsoft Excel, and with the proper type of formatting, you saw that you could put in social security numbers, phone numbers, and zip codes, and it would automatically put in the dashes. It would leave the zeros where they needed to be, and all the other things that you needed to have happen. Within subtotals, we sorted the information the way that we wanted to, and by implementing subtotals, we were then able to see these running totals along the way. Microsoft PowerPoint used the B key on the keyboard to create a blank screen while you're presenting. Use SmartArt to convert your bullet points into diagrams. And finally, my preference is always to create handouts by sending the PowerPoint presentation to Microsoft Word and allowing Microsoft Word to change the margins, the content, and all the rest. All right. So that's it for today's session. If you guys have questions for me, please feel free to stick around and ask anything you want. Actually, I just realized I had you guys on mute, so if anybody spoke up and wanted to ask any questions, please feel free to do that. Otherwise, thanks for your time and energy today. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and be amazing at what you do. What can I do for you, Cynthia? You're very welcome, Doug. Have a nice afternoon, or evening at this point.